welcome back to All Things Money. I'm your host, David Blain. Thank you for joining us today. During the last segment, we were talking about the Made in the USA, or what's called reshoring trend that's been happening. If you missed the last segment, head on over to the website, www.dlblain.com. That's DLBLAIN.com. We'll post the archives of the show there, as well as if you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact us there from the website. But we were talking about this trend of some of the largest manufacturers actually bringing manufacturing back to the United States. When we finished up, we talked about some of the challenge to this, and that this reshoring may not continue. A couple things: that if the value of the U.S. dollar rises sharply, notice I said sharply, it could reverse, or if some economics, if unemployment drops dramatically and wages start to accelerate, inflation starts to accelerate in the United States, it may, of course, reverse this trend. But for now, about half of the large manufacturing companies are considering moving operations from China to the United States. Another big factor involved in this is the fact that they estimate 600,000 U.S. manufacturing jobs are unfilled because they don't have skilled applicants. And this goes to, we've been talking about education the past several weeks, and how we don't prepare our students, our young people, for jobs out in the economy. And I think here in Craven County we do a great job. Our community college has some partnerships with some of the manufacturing, with some of the military bases and aerospace, aeronautical type jobs. And these are things that are very important, and not every person needs to go to a four-year university, and especially if they're going to get a degree in something that doesn't pay well or doesn't have much future. That these manufacturing jobs, so many of them are unfilled. There was a story, had a client up in the Tarboro area that several years ago, QVC, the online shopping place, wanted to bring a big warehouse to rural eastern North Carolina. And they were successful in attracting this plant and into this particular county. And so they built the plant in the county. When they opened up and they got all the job applicants to come in, they were employing like 700 or 800 people. As it turned out, that only like half a dozen or 10 people from the county that the plant was in actually got hired by this new facility, and that they had to draw all their employees from a large city that was 45 minutes away or so, because nobody was qualified. It was a computer, it was a very automated facility, and the majority of the people in this particular county couldn't run the computers. And so it's a very sad story, and so we need to make sure that our education is educating people for the jobs that are out there. But keep an eye on that. It will be fascinating to see if this reshoring trend back to the United States continues. During the time that we have left, I thought it might be fun to add a little levity to the show. Well, not levity to people that lost their money, but I get this newsletter from the North Carolina Securities Division, and I get it, the SEC. You can log on to the SEC website or any state, and they have, I call it the funny papers, where they talk about people that have been convicted of securities crimes. And you go through this, and every month after month, there's always lists of people that are ripping consumers off. And part of what I want to do this is to make you aware of it, that just because someone has such and such brokerage firm behind their name does not mean that you don't need to have your eyes open and understand what you're getting into. Especially, and the biggest thing in all of these things, it normally revolves around the promise of returns. And when we meet with new prospects, we don't discuss any returns. The promotion of returns is where people get into trouble, both from the consumer side, or if you go into some advisor's office and they're promoting these returns, and they're They're out of the ordinary. They're way above what anybody else can do, and they're making promises. You need to run away. I mean, those are surefire signs that you're going to get ripped off more than likely. So it brings us to our first story. This securities attorney was given a 23-year sentence. Now, in securities, of course, Madoff, he got a big sentence, but the majority of these things, you don't see these type of sentences. This guy, Gregory Bartko, who was an Atlanta attorney and securities broker, was sentenced in Raleigh to 23 years for the sale of unregistered securities. He was convicted during a 13-day trial that he harmed approximately 200 victims in 21 states. And what he was doing was he conspired with a salesman. This guy was a member of a church that used his connections to raise money from investors, and he promised a guaranteed interest rate of 12 to 14%, and that AIG Insurance was protecting the investment. Whenever you hear those things, guaranteed, and I know the insurance salesmen throw around guaranteed as well, but 12 to 14% guaranteed, run away. It's not happening, not possible. Anyway, so they would raise money from this, from these investors, and they would put it into basically this Ponzi scheme. But what makes this story sad and fascinating, and why this guy got such a large sentence, was this attorney. He kind of had a middleman in between, and so he wasn't directly connected to the entity that was ripping people's money off. And so when it came to light that this thing was a Ponzi scheme, this attorney actually took on some of the investors as clients to try to get their money back from the Ponzi scheme that he was involved in. And so at trial it came out that he was awarded $2 million in attorney fees for representing clients in this fraud and Ponzi scheme that he indirectly set up himself. And so that's why the penalty was so severe, 23 years in jail for that, that securities attorney. Well, there's many more of these. Once again, the theme being that if you're getting a promise of high returns or guaranteed returns, be very careful and run the other way. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I've been your host, David Blain. I hope that you will join us again next week.
The proceeding was a paid program. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of WNBU and Inner Banks Media.